I'd like to introduce Chantel Bong. She's the Director of Veterans SA with Defence SA, and these guys have been incredibly supportive, getting the word out about tonight's event, and I really appreciate the fact that you're able to come along and share that. So over to you, Chantel. Let's give a round of applause.
So good evening, everybody. As Wendy indicated, I'm Chantel Bong. I'm a former Royal Australian Navy Combat Systems Operator and currently the Director of Veterans SA. I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting tonight on the lands of the Kaurna people and pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. And for the veterans and the veteran families in the room, thank you for your service. I'm grateful to have been invited here this evening and to support tonight's event. Been asked to tell you a little bit about my experience in the ADF, as well as introduce you to Veterans SA and what we do to support the veteran community here in South Australia. So a little bit about me. By comparison, I joined the military fairly late. I was 24 years old when I signed up, and I really believe that in hindsight that was a great benefit, having a little bit of life experience behind me before I actually embarked on that military career really did help. Instilled some coping mechanisms in me that I was going to need that I didn't know I needed. So, ironically, although I specialised in sonar operation, I spent the majority of my career working in intelligence, and the only seat posting that I got on HMAS Tobruk didn't have a sonar. So, not a bad thing all up, because there's not a great deal of sonar operating work in the civilian world. So during my postings to Tobruk, I went to East Timor and the Solomon Islands, which was a really valuable lesson and experience in agility, flexibility, trust, compassion and in humanitarian aid. Situations changed on a dime, and there was nothing to do except adapt in those situations, and anybody who's here served in the military will be able to attest to that. An example, we were on our way to Fiji when we got an order to turn around and head back to the Solomon Islands. Our ship had a maximum capacity of 520 people, and suddenly she had to carry 800 people, the youngest of whom was 8 months old. Some of these people had never been out of Solomon Islands before, so they were being bundled up onto a ship and ferried to Cairns with no concept of what their future was going to hold. So a trip that should have seen us away from home for 3 weeks actually turned into a 3-month deployment. The mantra, adapt and overcome, it's still relevant today, and it is extremely relevant to the families that are left at home when they get the message that their loved ones are going to be away for longer than they thought. So oddly, this operation that was deemed as peacekeeping sits with me more than some of the things that I saw in East Timor. I guess with operational service you're somewhat trained to expect some things, and you steel yourself for those things as best you can. But the humanitarian peacekeeping work is what has had the biggest impact on my life. Post-service life, I went to work in the correctional services system when I first got out, which a lot of ex-military people do. We sort of gravitate towards those frontline emergency service careers. And then after that, I moved into the Commonwealth Department of Veterans Affairs for 11 years. And then in 2016, I came across to Veterans SA. For those of you who aren't familiar with Veterans SA, our purpose, we're a small agency, and when I say small, it's only 4.4 of us within the South Australian Government, and we advocate for the consideration of veterans in state government policies and processes. The agency was originally established in 2008 with a strong focus on commemoration, as we were just leading into the centenary of Anzac. However, in the last 2 years, our focus has pivoted, and we're addressing the needs of the veteran community, and particularly working age veterans and their families. We've recently learned through the valuable data collection in the 2021 census that there are approximately 48,000 people in South Australia who currently or have served. Half of these are working age. However, the number of working age people in South Australian veteran community is much higher when you also include spouses and families. The data demonstrates that we have a large pool of highly skilled, qualified and adaptable people here in South Australia. Despite this, veterans still remain a highly skilled, relatively untapped workforce for the skills crisis that we're encountering across the country. Unfortunately, veterans can be overlooked for job opportunities in mainstream careers due to the stigma associated with the psychological impacts of service on some, or a lack of understanding of how the defence skills and experience match to civilian roles. Military spouses are also an underutilised cohort in the labour market. Even though they're often skilled, qualified possess many of the soft and transferable skills and attributes sought by employers. We've also found that there are a number of policies and processes that restrict employment as people move around the country on deployment. For example, teaching and nursing licensing requirements from state to state change, which can be confusing and in the end result in delays in beginning employment in your next state. It's incredibly pleasing to see a number of organisations recognise the skills and experience of veterans and their families and developing programs that help them to map their careers and translate their military skills. For example, the Prince's Trust Australia works with veterans and ADF families to build the confidence, skills, networks they need to explore self-employment opportunities through their enterprise program. Veterans SA has also implemented several initiatives to assist working age veterans and their families. In 2021, we ran a successful Veterans Mentoring Program pilot that connected former serving members and reservists with individuals from a variety of sectors and professions across the state. We're currently working on securing funding for the program to run again in 2023, and this time we would like to add additional streams for those considering entrepreneurship and another for partners of current and former serving ADF members. Our team are also working on other state and federal government departments and agencies on policy changes and initiatives to assist current and former serving members and their families as they carve out their careers in South Australia. These include surveying professional licensing transfer issues for military spouses that move to South Australia on deployment following the service member's transition, surveying newly arrived defence families to gauge their perceptions on issues such as health, education and housing in South Australia, engaging with regional communities to ensure that veterans and their families in regional areas of the state are aware of the career support services available to them, and collaborating with industry leaders in sectors including construction, mining and energy and defence to highlight potential career pathways for former serving members and military spouses. These initiatives, alongside many others that we're working on, will assist the veteran community in gaining meaningful employment or exploring entrepreneurial opportunities. Furthermore, many of these initiatives will help to highlight to the wider South Australian community that veterans, military spouses have a lot to offer workplaces and the business community. So to all of you here tonight, whether you're here as a veteran, a military partner, somebody who's already operating in the entrepreneurial space, or considering dipping your toe, if I can leave you with one message, it would be that veterans, their partners, and even their children are strategic thinkers, agile and innovative. We have to be. We're great assets for any business as a member of the veteran community. Nearly got there, I've got like 2 paragraphs. We're great assets for anyone's business. And as a member of the veteran community, if you're considering starting your own business, you already have a strong foundation of core skills for success. There's a great website called the Australian Veteran Owned Business that highlights the broad range of successful businesses, veteran businesses. So if you'd like to learn more about the initiatives we're currently working on, please have a chat with myself or one of my team who are here this evening. So you've got Eric over there in the shirt, you can't forget him, and a man who's just sitting down here in the 3rd row. So thank you very much for your time and enjoy your evening.
All right, everybody, we are now going to hand over to the panel, and the person that's hosting the panel is Ben Flick. He is the Senior Manager for Innovation at the RAA. He is a tech entrepreneur, and he is an Army Reserve Major. He's a leader in the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem, and he's a very good friend. So over to you, Ben. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you very much, Wendy. Real pleasure to be here tonight. Who's pumped? Who's ready? Who's pumped? Good. We've got a great panel assembled tonight, and we're really, truly, today I stalked them on LinkedIn. I was looking at all their profiles, so impressed, and it gives me great delight to start to introduce them to come up and join me up here. So first off, I'd like to invite Sally Carruthers, who's founder of Organised by Sally. Let's give her a round of applause, please. Next up, we've got Mark Lewis, former Managing Director and owner of Bernie Lewis Group. Carla Lambert, business coach and mentor. Finally, John Godwin, Managing Director of Cambrian Executive. I hope that's not a secret. Okay, so get yourselves present, get comfortable, and let's join in and connect and listen to some amazing stories talking about the role that veterans and those who are related to services can play for the innovation ecosystem. So to kick us off, who best to talk about themselves? Not me, but to ask each of them individually. Tell us about yourself, your business, and your connection to the services.
Hi everyone, I'm Sally. I run Organised by Sally, which is, I'm a professional home organiser and clutter coach. I am not originally from Adelaide, I'm from New South Wales. I came down here after a short notice deployment, was over in Edinburgh and decided to discharge. I started my business probably 3.5, 4 years ago. And I've really loved doing it. Prior to that, obviously when I was with the Defence Force, I was in the Air Force as an air surveillance operator. Sort of fancy way of looking at radar screens.
Perfect, thank you. Over to you, Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Lewis. I started my career as a pilot in the Air Force. Almost, about 11 and a half years, flying multiple aircraft types, but predominantly the C-130 Hercules. Didn't see myself as an airline pilot, so ended up working in finance, which I did for nearly 25 years. And earlier this year, I finally sold my business. So I'm currently having a career sabbatical, as I'd like to call it. I'm not unemployed, having a career sabbatical. And before I think about what I'm going to do next, but I always had a goal to be financially independent by the time I turned 55, and I've just turned 56. So, and I've got 5 children, the youngest of which is 5, and the oldest is 23.
Hi, I'm Cara Lambert. So what brings me here, I'm the daughter of a vet and veteran, now the daughter of a war widow. I spent 12 years working for the Department of Veterans Affairs. Part of that time, Chantal and I actually worked together. I was one of the mentors for the Veterans SA inaugural mentoring group for veterans who run their own businesses. I am a business coach and consultant, but I have a specialty of business psychology, so business owner mindset, the psychology of motivating staff, and the psychology of social media. And yeah, so that's me, what brought me.
Hi everyone, I'm John. I'm a Navy veteran, an Iraq veteran, and I guess I've had 2 careers. My first career was in uniform for 14 years. I went at 18, I joined the Navy, went through the Defence Force Academy. I was a weapons electrical engineer in the Navy, so I did an engineering degree through the Academy. Went on to serve in ships at sea and shore postings, exercises overseas and operational deployments. And then after 14 years, decided to strike out and go into the corporate world. So I've spent the last, I guess, the second half of my career, the last 14 years in the corporate world, in the defence industry. As an engineer, as a program manager, as a general manager, business development director, and then a managing director. And now I'm embarking, just in the last 2 months, in fact, it feels like I'm going on to a new career, which is a third career as a business owner. So I've just founded my own company, set up as a business development consultant for defence. And so we're offering strategic captures and complex business development campaigns for defence industry companies. Very new, we haven't even launched yet, we don't have a website yet. So it's that new, it's literally like the last 2 months. When Wendy called me, I was in a sabbatical between jobs and thinking about starting up a business. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you, all of you, for your introductions. Sounds like I should go on a sabbatical. Now, to keep the mic there, thanks, John. Moving on to a discussion on transferability of skills that we learn from service life and in whatever form that takes, or within a service family. Can you provide an example where you've applied what you've learned from your association with the services into your own business? We'll start with you, John.
Sure, I guess in terms of the skills and attributes, it's probably more the attributes, I would think. And like I said, I'm very new to business ownership, but in the sort of business career, in the corporate career, I think there's those attributes that you learn in defence: trust, loyalty, and commitment, and things like that. But it's a double-edged sword. So I had some negative experiences when I first left defence. I was, in fact, like working as a contractor then to companies in the first couple of years out, and I think that some of those things that stand you in good stead in defence, like the trust, loyalty, can be taken advantage of. Really, like I think in the business world. So it was a bit of a baptism of fire the first year or so, and that's a bit of a reverse culture shock that people talk about leaving defence. I think that those are the same attributes that will make people very valuable to, veterans very valuable to employers, and also business owners who are veterans. They will make them valuable to their clients.
Thank you. And Karen?
So, as a daughter of a vet and veteran, probably getting into psychology seems a very logical first step. So I have a degree in psychology, and that is the basis of my business. But then going on and spending 12 years working for Veterans Affairs, I then learnt and honed a lot of those skills. Listening is a really important skill. Usability. So a lot of the information that I provide now is about the usability and the audience for social media and understanding the audience. I learnt that from working on projects about bringing veteran services online. What might seem really hard to believe, but motivating staff was actually something that I learnt, was a skill that I learnt and developed working for Veterans Affairs. And if any of you have any dealings with Veterans Affairs, you might actually wonder, does that actually happen? Yes, motivate staff. You do get them to work. And I then understood the theory behind the practical skills that I developed. So it is part of that kind of stuff. But I've got to be honest, it's the adaptability and the ability to listen and look at everyone and go, yeah, you know what, I'm here, I'm present, and I'm really listening to you, and I'm really interested in what you have to say. And I thank you for what you have done. And applying that to every single person that I meet. I come across and listen to their story, and applying that in every single business that I help. So,
thank you.
For me, there's probably three things. Over the years, I've been exposed to lots of different templates for business plans, and I always come back to a methodology I learned at Officer Training School, which is called the SMEAC brief. Some people are nodding their heads. SMEAC stands for Situation, Mission, Execution, Admin, and Command and Control. And if you look at those 5 headings, you can pretty much cover off a full business plan within a SMEAC brief. And the second part is, if you can't fit it on one side of an A4 piece of paper, then you're either trying to do too many things or you haven't thought about it deeply enough. So all my business plans were always one side of an A4 piece of paper with a minimum 10-point font and 2 centimetre margins. The second one was checklists. Being a pilot, we always operated off of checklists. And when I first came into finance, I created a lot of checklists or workflows. And what checklists do is they make your process predictable and repeatable, which drives efficiencies and scale and all that sort of thing. And the third one I learnt was training. As a pilot, you're constantly training in simulators, in the air, you're constantly revising things. And it wasn't about training until you got it right, it was about training until you couldn't get it wrong. Because sometimes your life might have depended on it. So they're probably the main things.
I guess for me, so my skills with defence did not translate at all. So I kind of went out going, oh crap, what do I do now? But with my actual business, I am not naturally organised. That's not me. Like, it sounds ridiculous, but defence was what taught me how to be organised, and that has translated and grown, and kind of that's where it's come from. The problem-solving skills, like you go into a situation and defence teaches you how to just figure it out. Like, that path is blocked, find a different way, go around, find something else to do instead. So I guess they're the main ones, is that I actually learn how to be organised. You know, day one at recruits, you learn that pretty quick. And then, yeah, the problem-solving and just, I hate to say it, but like the can-do attitude, like you just get the job done. It has to be done, find a way.
Thank you, and I'm embarrassed to say I'm the only one in my family that can do a hospital fold on the bed sheets. All right, moving on to our next question. I want to dig into adversity and resilience. I know you've touched on it a little bit, but what's been your biggest business challenge, and how have you overcome it?
COVID. But not in the way you think. COVID was actually very good for my business because a lot of people stayed at home and realised they have too much stuff and they needed some help, which is good. I'm a mother though, so balancing dealing with, you know, general sicknesses like a cold, then gets blown out of proportions, not blown out of proportions, but everyone, you think it's going to be COVID, so you have to kind of just go worst case scenario, okay, I'm shut down for X amount of days until everyone is well. And the first year of daycare is atrocious. Your kids come, there's like a cesspool of just nasty, and they come home with everything. And managing that, my business and COVID, if anyone went through COVID as a business owner, whether it went well or it didn't, I think everyone needs a report for that, because that was pretty full on.
So many things to choose from when you're running your own business, but probably the biggest one for me was 2nd of February 2005. Both my parents were killed in an aircraft crash in New Zealand, and obviously my dad was who the business is named after. So in that one fell swoop, I lost both my parents, I lost my best friends, I lost my business partner and my mentor, and had to pick myself up and dust myself off and keep running the business. But it was a big challenge. Obviously, it was very public. The day the accident happened that night, I had 153 journalists and cameramen sitting on my front lawn for a press conference, and it was quite surreal sitting in the Qantas Club the next morning, watching my press conference on TV and people looking across and doing a double take. And then bringing them home, going over to New Zealand and bringing them home. And I remember we got to Taupo, and being an ex-pilot myself, I wanted to know a bit more about the accident and what happened. It was more about what happened and why, getting down to the why. And I borrowed a helicopter, because we knew how to fly choppers, and flew up to the crash site because it was in pretty inaccessible country, and then had a look at the crash site and tried to rationalise how the accident might have happened. And then that night I was sitting in a motel room in Taupo, just on the edge of the lake, and I'm writing media ads because we were getting questions about, you know, was the business going to continue and that sort of thing. And you know, here I am trying to grieve and come to terms with what had happened, but I'm still trying to run the business remotely as well. It was just, and of course the funeral, there was about 6,000 people at the funeral, and it was televised. So it was a pretty tough time, but as they say in the military, improvise, adapt and overcome. And we went on and grew the business, and over the next 4 years, I tripled the revenue of the business, and you know, onwards and upwards. And I had a great team around me to support me as well. think I got up to 105 staff at one stage. So, and they were really supportive. So that helped a lot. And the Adelaide community was really supportive too.
Thanks for sharing.
So, while I would say keeping a business running whilst supporting my family, or my mum through my dad's battle with brain cancer, I would actually say probably the hardest thing that I've had to overcome is people telling me, but nobody will understand what you do. And it's recurrent. The number of people that say to me, but no one will understand or want to understand the psychology of social media, Cara. Nobody's interested in business psychology, Cara. But it's having that internal drive, knowing that the audience is out there. There are people that do want to know, do need to know, and ignoring the people who they're actually too afraid to go and do and call their business what they want it to do and be what they want it to be, and put you out there in ways that they're not actually game enough to do themselves. That's been the hardest thing for me to overcome, and I've had to do it time and time again.
So, wow. So resilience. So I think defence people are, and ex-defence people, veterans are very resilient. And I just think back to, I was asking people for advice when I was going off as an 18-year-old to join the military, and asked a lot of people for advice, and they gave it. But one person who I really trusted was my grandfather, who's a World War II veteran, you know, of the 7th Division, fought against the Japanese in Borneo, and was mentioned in dispatches, and amazing, humble man. And he said to me, only one piece of advice: if you can keep from crying, they'll keep you from laughing. And that's true. So getting into the military, you know, it's tough, and what they put you through is tough. Not just in training, but when you go on exercises, when you work up for deployments, and when you go on deployment, you see, you know, you deal with things like Chantel mentioned. Things change in an instant. You go from thinking it's a bit of a cruisy deployment to suddenly everything's happening all very, very fast. And I think that does build resilience. So when I think about challenges in the business world, I think it's probably that, like some of the other panel members have mentioned, it comes from not necessarily challenges from the business, or from your role. It comes from the life events that happen around you. A loved one becoming sick, or suddenly, this happened to us, becoming carers, my wife and I becoming carers for a family member. So those sort of things happen, but you've still got to function, you've still got to keep going as a business. And I think definitely, you know, veterans in business, I think that's an advantage, because you're used to doing that. So that's my perspective.
I really deeply appreciate the authenticity you've all brought to that question, and thank you for sharing that. Now I just want to move on in terms of, we talk about veterans and what they bring, but what's a key takeaway you want to leave us on tonight, on the end there? What's a key message or key takeaway for the audience you'd like to leave us with?
I think for those who are veterans in the audience, if you're thinking of starting a business or getting into business, have confidence in yourself and what you bring to it. If you have that burning desire to own your own, to be a business owner, to be an entrepreneur, I'd say go for it. And probably don't wait for the right time, because you may not have all the skills and all the knowledge, but you can get those. You can train, you can learn, you can get other people to help you, but you do have the right qualities and attributes. So,
thank you.
So I'm going to be cheeky and put 2 in here. So quick one. If you've got a business name, go off and secure all of the names for all of the social media platforms, including TikTok. You may not think that you want TikTok or Snapchat now. It doesn't matter. Go grab it. Because there are so many businesses at the bigger end of town where you cannot type their name in the same way on all of the different platforms and get to their content. So go and do it, even if you don't think you'll actually ever use that name. So that's a quick one. The second one goes back to the biggest adversity that I had to overcome, and we've all got these core values that keep driving us, and organisational psychologists know that having our values are actually better motivators for us to achieve our goals than actually setting the goals themselves and planning them out and talking to people and all of those kinds of things. So we're told that goal setting should be. So we've generally got two or three values that drive us and keep us on the path, and having those and having some quotes or having it up on a post-it note on your laptop or wherever, so that you can remember when things get tough that this is where I come from. So for me, as a daughter of a veteran, courage is my core value. Everyone's different. I've come across so many varied values through the time, but it's that will drive you. It's that will keep you true. And when you find that you've got the wobbles, and you will, and you feel distracted, and you feel lost, and you feel like nobody gets you, go back to that core value. It will keep you true, and it will keep you on the path to getting to where you actually want to and need to be in that business.
Thank you. A couple of things. I always say never let a good crisis go to waste. And because some of my greatest successes in business came on the back of a crisis. And certainly military people are good at responding to a crisis, because that's pretty much what we did every day. Second one.
Can you tell us a bit more around leaving a legacy? Okay, we'll go over to someone.
I'm pretty much just going to echo what's been said. I had a lot of people going, why would you do that? No one's going to want that business. I'm like, there are so many people that want my service, but people within my own circle were like, oh, don't do that. It's the belief in yourself and going, no, you know what? This is what I'm meant to do. I know people actually want this, and actually going out and doing it. It's the biggest, leap that you ever take to go, yes, I'm in business. Come and work with me, whatever it is. But it's the most rewarding as well. You get to dictate everything. It's your business, the fear often, the fear of failure and doing things wrong. It is the biggest learning experience, because you mess up. You get a client that you're like, oh man, I shouldn't have taken that client. But you learn from them and go, okay, what do I have to do so I don't get another one of those? Just believe in yourself. Don't let other people talk you out of it.
Thank you. I've got one last question actually to go to Mark. Sorry. The second one. Okay, you can enjoy it.
Sorry, I thought of the second one. When I was in the military, and you'll have all experienced it, it's kind of one big happy family. You know a lot of people, and being a pilot, we travel around a lot. And I was always comfortable with the fact that I could go pretty much anywhere in Australia and a lot of places over the world, and within a phone call have somebody to have a beer with. And I thought I'd missed that. And when I got out, I made a point of, because I thought it would be lonely being in business, and certainly as a business owner it can be lonely. So I made a point of getting involved with our industry association and with networking groups such as this, and having conversations with people all the time. And the industry association, I eventually became the national president of the association. And I was always very free and open with sharing information and ideas, because, and the reason, a lot of people huddle their ideas and keep them to themselves, but by sharing your own ideas, you encourage people to share their ideas as well. And never be afraid to share ideas, because most people, the vast majority of people, can't execute on it. So don't be scared to share your ideas or your intellectual property, because most people cannot execute on it. So that was a really big boost for me in business.
Completely agree with that last comment, and yeah, so ideas are worthless until they're implemented, right? So yeah, 100%.
More in the execution.
So just one final question, just up to Mark here, just on those who are in the services or from a service family. We do think about leaving a legacy and for our family. And just want to delve into a little bit into your story on this topic.
So I'm on the speaker circuit with corporates and community groups and that, with a talk I give about. It's called the Green Box. And just before I joined the Air Force, Dad sat me down. I was 19 at the time. Dad sat me down at the kitchen table and showed me a whole bunch of documents that were inside this green box. And he always said to me, if anything ever happens to your mother and I, go to this box, it'll have everything you need. Sure enough, when it did happen, I went to the green box, and at a time of immense grieving and everything else and trying to run a business, I was also the executor of their estate, and inside that green box it had everything I needed to finalise their estate. My lawyers were telling me it was going to take more than 2 years to do it. I had it done inside of 3 months. It's a presentation that I give all the time. Applying to state, do it locally, and talk about the green box and what was in it, and about the why you should have one. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think it's always good when you finish a panel wanting more. And I've got to say thank you so much for sharing your stories, your experiences and your views on this topic. And just join me in thanking all the panellists for such a great session.